Welcome to another 3-Star Podcast. I'm Dave Stein, the voice of the Cowboys and Cowgirls. Glad to have you along with us. And joining me, I've got a whole room full of people. Oh, my gosh, not used to this. Go ahead, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves.
My name is Joesph Granzow. I'm the high school vocal music director.
Monte, Leichsenring, former middle school director, now back at it for another year, high school band and 5th grade beginner band.
And Ryan Nail, your head CGD baseball coach.
Well, now I'm glad we got everybody together because there's one thing that a lot of people maybe not realize is the fact that when you're in smaller schools, especially like this, kids are involved in multiple things. And we were talking about just before we went live that how many kids that are on the baseball team are also involved in the music department. And how many did you think you said, Mr. L?
I think we have 9.
9.
Yeah. I think the thing that impressed me the most, though, was coming back here, spending this year with them and shooting with the football program. I've left those kids that start. I have 3 varsity starters in band. And I leave them alone. I don't touch them, and nor should I. But the other kids that dress for home games that maybe don't see any playing time, but they're an important part of that football team, are also an important part of my marching band. And so we really have a good working relationship. They need to be with their team, but they need to be with me too. And so they're in their uniforms. We bring their horns over. They play. They get back with their team. And it just looks good. It's good for the programs as well.
Well, I think it makes a well-rounded, not just athlete, but person in general. Now, let's talk about the vocal department as well. Now, you get kids involved with the baseball program, with football, all of the sports.
We have a few sports students in the choir program, and speaking of the baseball, one of the neatest things last season was having 2 of the starting varsity baseball players sing the national anthem at a home game.
Yeah, and they did an absolutely fantastic job.
Thank you. Yes, they were great.
Yes, and I've called upon them to do some other community events as well because of that talent that they have. Now, what are some of the challenges though when we talked about having to work back and forth between the teams and whatnot, but there's got to be some additional challenges as far as scheduling everything.
I think getting the basic schedule is the hardest part because we don't want to put the students in a position where they have to choose. It should be to the adults in the room, the coaches, the directors, the AD, and we work out a schedule where kids can be involved in both because the more they do, the better of a person they are.
And I think in this day and age when kids are involved in a lot, especially in 1A, 2A, 3A schools even, you can do it all. It just comes down to time management. If you have a passion for sports and you have a passion for music, there's no reason you can't do both. And I will say, after teaching well over 30 years in this district, very seldom do I ever feel like we are at odds with each other.
100%. Yeah,
right.
I see a number of kids that are maybe not athletes that are at a ball game. I also see a number of athletes who are not involved in music come and support their friends who are in the musical or at a concert.
Exactly.
And that doesn't happen in every school. That really doesn't. And we are blessed to have this camaraderie between the departments because you know what? Whether I'm on the football team or I'm in the band, I'm part of a team.
Absolutely.
And we need to have a team to win.
And being part of a team is an important part of just growing up and getting ready to be part of civilization.
Life skills,
how to
for
interact with people, how to schedule, time management, take a risk.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I see that helps, when you're performing, it's one thing to be on a field, on the diamond, on the field, whatever the case, on the court. You're not up close and personal. People are watching, but you're running back and forth, but to get up in front, whether it be band or choir, whatever the case is, or the musical, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, to get up there and to have people looking back at you. You learn to build that confidence,
right,
and to not have the stage fright, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think another big thing as a coach is being able to see your players that you see in one light, also see them in a different light. And that's one of my favorite things, and always has been as a coach, is showing up to the musical or to the concerts or anything like that and really seeing them shine in a different light. And you get some of that satisfaction when you see them out for another sport, whether it's basketball or wrestling or football and things like that, and seeing them, in a totally different view. But there's nothing like seeing them up on a stage in the bright lights, performing in front of a ton of people and having that confidence. And I think both athletics instill that confidence and performing instill that confidence. And I think the kids that are in both are probably some of the most confident kids in the school.
I think you'll find too. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here when I say if I was even a small college coach that I was looking at a particular player. The fact that Johnny, who's also who's a tremendous shortstop and hits 480, is also got a tremendous voice, as well as does speech contest and maybe plays trombone in the band. Those are well-rounded kids, and I think colleges are looking for those well-rounded kids because, it's one thing to work in a cubicle your entire life. But it's another, how can I get along with people? It comes back to teamwork again. And if we don't have that, then everybody suffers.
Well, that kind of runs into my next question. Was going to be, the traits that you guys, see when you're bringing athletes into the arts side of things.
What I've noticed, especially for this production of Mamma Mia this year, having some of the sports students involved more actively than has been in the past, there has been a higher work ethic happening, practicing, staying on task, getting the job done, and reaching for perfection. They don't argue over having to do another rehearsal. They're usually the ones saying, we need more practice, and I can appreciate that.
I'll also tell you that after having taught for many years in the middle school, one of the things I always looked forward to was the high school band director coming over in the spring when they're getting ready to do their scheduling as their freshman year and just sharing a little bit about what's going on at the high school band. This year, I'm on the other end of the thing, bringing some kids over. I will guarantee you, I've got 3 varsity starters that will be going over to talk to that band at Mr. Claver's office this spring, and I think I probably should have them be wearing their football jerseys.
Oh, definitely.
You know
100%.
what? Because that's a visual thing, and we're visual learners. Kids see that, and they go,
They can do both.
Yes.
he's a stud. I mean, he's a good player, But he's also a really good trombone player, all right? And you can do both. In this school, you can do both. Like I said, not every school works that way, but we're fortunate to have what we have here.
Agreed.
That is one of the advantages of a small school.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I think it brings the leaders to light. The more they're doing, the more they have to be proactive, like you talked about, and the more they are used to leading people both on the field or in the classroom, on the stage, anything like that. And, particular, a few of the guys that you guys, either one or both of you have, are some of my best leaders, and I know without even asking or seeing, I can guarantee they're probably some of your best leaders in the classroom as well.
Well, and we have good kids. CGD has good kids. I've taught in numerous schools, and these are some of the finest I've come across.
Now, having said all the happy stuff about everything, let's talk some about difficulties, because there's always a flip side to that coin. What are some of the difficulties you guys have to deal with when you're dealing with the athletics and the arts combined?
I would say probably scheduling.
Yep.
The difficulty,
100%,
what we talk about being a good thing and having students be involved in more is also a negative thing where we do have to work around everyone else's schedule. Unfortunately, a lot of times in the music department, we are at the bottom of the totem pole. But I feel because we're used to that, we plan ahead and figure out how can we make this work. We don't want a student to miss out on a game or a tournament or whatever. But at some point, when it comes to a practice versus a rehearsal or a performance, we got to make sure that there's flexibility on both sides of the coin.
And I also think, too, that there are times where kids are forced to make a choice, not that anybody's making them, but they have to make a choice.
Yep.
For example, I've got a student that comes to mind who I really would like to see go to an honor band in January, and isn't going to work because they got an athletic event.
Yep.
Oh, and when they had to take off for West Lyon,
Yep.
I had 2 or 3 kids that are football players that missed a lesson that afternoon because the bus left at 12:30 or 12:45. But
Thank the state for that one.
Yeah, right.
They've done a lot of research on that, though, and they know it's okay.
But in the grand scheme of things, the problems are pretty minimal.
Yes.
For us, they really are, and I couldn't be happier with the situation that we have here. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Nobody has a perfect situation.
And it comes down to communication. I've got no problem communicating with either of these guys here on, hey, how can we make this work? It's not going to work. It's how can we make this work? And springtime for me is when we're getting geared up. That's a busy time. Weekends, there's contests. I stay away from weekends. During season, before the season, that's time for the kids and that's time for the contests. And, when we start our first 2 weeks of practice, there is music events, there's graduation, there's track events still going on, there's golf events. And if you are not flexible as a head coach, then you're just going to be unhappy. So, those first 2 weeks, which is really crunch time for us, they've got to go because they've got to sing, or there's a music night or a music awards night. And that's something we ran into last year was the music awards night.
I think we had students showing up for music awards in their baseball uniforms.
And that's just kind of what you have to do. But again, it starts with communication more than say the day of. We're all very good at emailing and communicating. I'm literally 10 steps away during the school year from these guys, and communicate ahead of time, put it on your schedule, and if there's a conflict, work to resolve it rather than become bitter because of it, because one, that's not good for us as coworkers, but it's extremely, extremely not good for the student because it puts them in a very hard spot, and we need to be the leaders and work it out for them and not put them in that hard spot to make those choices.
Well, and another challenge is not only just sharing the students, but space. Next week is a prime example with the Veterans Day assembly and the musical happening. And whereas our performance venue is the gym, so PE is displaced for a couple days to make room for us.
Ryan's classroom is the lunchroom.
Yeah.
Yep. And
or pray for at least 50 degrees.
Yeah.
So you can get
Yeah.
outside,
And we just count on that.
And we make it work. If enough
if-
communication in advance, we can plan accordingly.
And we don't lose much with a couple of days, and that's got to be the thought process going, and we'll get by it. And it's better for someone else rather than for ourselves, and that's kind of what you as a coach, as a teacher, as a leader have to do, is put others in front of you. And even if it's not what you want or works best for you, those are the cards that you're dealt. We have to be grown-ups about it, and we've got to make it work. That's
hard to do sometimes too, when you forget sometimes that it's about the kid first.
Kids first.
And us, we'll be okay. Yeah. We might get bruised a little bit. Our egos.
Yeah.
Big deal. Okay, get over it. But
you got to get outside that tunnel vision of what your goal is, and understand that there's going to be, bumps in the road ahead of you, and figure out one, how to avoid them, and if it can't be avoided, slow down and make the damage not as bad.
Right.
So what would you say are the overall goals when you're dealing with the athletic side of athletic arts? I guess I'm not quite sure how to word that, but it's a combination.
We want to see the students succeed. That's just plain and simple. We want them to succeed in everything they attempt, everything they are doing, and we want them to enjoy their high school career.
I would second that. We need to embrace what we have here, because I remember my middle daughter was irritated when she was in high school. She said, Dad, if I would have gone to an Ankeny, I could have specialized in volleyball and I probably would have been better. And I said, you got a scholarship to play small college volleyball. You also played in band, sang in chorus, did the plays, did the musicals. You don't get any of that in a 5A school. Very seldom does that happen in a 5A school or even a 4A school. And we need to embrace and foster that feeling that we can give those kids here. I think we have so much to be thankful for, and sometimes we forget just how blessed we are to have what we have here.
Yeah, and we talk about regret all the time. I don't want the kids to regret missing out on something, whether it's I'm recruiting him to come out for the baseball team, to sing in the choir or to play in the band. You don't want them to regret not doing it. I think very rarely it happens that somebody actually does it, they go through with it, and they say, I regret going out. That hardly ever happens.
They regret that they didn't try something.
Yes.
And this is where taking a risk comes into play. Go out for that sport that you don't think you might not be as good as you think you are, but go for it. Try it. Go out for that production. Pick up that instrument out of the closet and get it back going again.
And when you talk about all that, it does create a well-rounded person. When we talk about high school, I started my morning at 7 o'clock in the morning with either show choir or jazz band every morning, Monday through Friday.
Hands.
And I went from there. I went through school all day. I had football, basketball/wrestling because I was, and then. Wasn't really great at either one, but I was there. Then, and baseball and all. And then, plus, then that after all that was over with, I had musical in the fall, and I had a play to do and I had leads in all of that. So, I mean, it was go, go, go. But I think in the long run, it made me, a better person because I learned time management a lot better.
Yep, exactly.
But also, I love listening to all types of music. Sometimes I'm driving along like, I think we need some jazz today. It kind of gives you a whole different outlook on life.
And that's how you picked up on different accents and dialects. Give us a little.
Well, we'll go into that a little bit. But now, when we talk about productions, about everything, you've been mentioning productions. We have a big one coming up. This is huge.
Next week, we open Mamma Mia, and we have a cast of about 22 students on stage with about 5 or 6 crew members, and we have a couple varsity football players, baseball players on our stage, and it is going to be fantastic.
I was very impressed when I saw what was chosen for the musical. That brought back music from the late 70s that was very popular, and of course now it's bringing it to a whole different group of kids.
Right.
And they all think it's cool. They think they're inventing something. I say, you guys just want to be 70s kids. That's all you are, So.
Isn't everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just please don't bring back the bell bottoms.
No.
And I think, some of the best part of it, the best part of the program I enjoy seeing is not necessarily the production, but say when either the first show's done or the second show's done, when they're coming out to their family and their friends that have been there to, the smiles on
supporters.
Their faces, their confidence is booming, absolutely booming. The stress, the relief is there because it's over, so they can finally relax, and then you can really see, that sparkle in their eye, that what they just did and what they accomplished, and that's truly one of the coolest things.
But I think they also find that when you're like, oh, that last performance is over, but there's a little bit of you that wants to do one more. Let's do one more.
Or when they ask, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. And that just shows the growth.
Right.
Yeah.
To look at the other side of that coin again, though, Ryan, there's nothing more fun than sitting at a ball game in the summer and watching that kid jack his first home run.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so jacked up that he can barely run around the bases, and everybody's going crazy. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah, and the coaches remind him to make sure they touch the base and don't jump over top of it, And, along with that, after a big win, we always meet at the pitcher's mound after a win or a loss, but there is just again, I keep saying confidence, but it just booms. You can just see it in their faces.
Yeah.
Kids want to succeed, and unfortunately, in sports, you don't succeed all the time, and that can be defeating. I think that's a great thing about what you guys do is there is usually success found in everything they do. But like us, we have to practice. You guys have to practice, and everything might not go perfect, and it usually doesn't. Right. But usually they're the only ones that really know it, and they have to be aware that not everyone knows what's going on. Find your success, build on it, and keep moving forward.
And I would always say process outweighs the product any day. And everything they learn is along the way. It's the rules, the trials and tribulations. The product is nice, and sometimes it can be fabulous, but the route that you took to get there is where all the work is.
You talk about that old adage of, spread your wings. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. No different than it is in band and chorus.
Yep.
Or speech or drama, or anything, any of the arts, visual arts even.
Yep.
You might think, I don't know about that, and then that first person walks up and sees your piece of work on the bulletin board and goes, wow. That's unreal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you look at things a little differently in life.
Yeah. And I to this day, when I was in high school, I was for sports all year long. That's all I did. I didn't sing. I didn't play in the band. But to this day, I wish I could just sit down at a piano and just play. I wish I could sing when a song comes on the radio. But right now, it's horrific when I sing. So, I would. But and it would have been horrific then. But I would have gotten better. If you were out for that stuff, you would have gotten better. And I think that's sometimes the hard things for them to see is I'm not very good at it. I shouldn't do it. Well, you're not very good at it. You should do it and get better. Right.
Well, and I think we can find a place on stage for you if you're willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad, Ryan, because I was a catcher in high school, and I would give anything to be able to kneel again. That ain't going to happen.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
So showtimes and our tickets still available?
Tickets are available from cast members and at the high school office currently. It is 7 o'clock on Friday night the 10th and 2 o'clock on Saturday the 11th.
All right. Well, anything else anybody would like to add?
Just thanks for having us.
That was a fantastic show.
Yeah.
By far my favorite so far.
Absolutely.
Usually it's just me and Dave staring at each other. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate each and every one of you and everything you do for CGD, for the school, for the kids, because that's what it's all about. It's the kids. Yeah, that's going to wrap up this edition of the 3-Star podcast. Boy, you'd think for somebody who spends as much time talking, I wouldn't have problems with it.
It was a pretty clean episode up until then.
It was until I started. But anyhow, hey, have a great week, and we'll see you at Mamma Mia coming up this weekend right here at CGD High School.